Okay, well, good afternoon, good evening, or potentially good morning, everybody, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to today's Digital Insurer webinar on blockchain and insurance here for good, insights from Hong Kong and beyond. And it's our pleasure for you to be joining us today on what is undoubtedly a really interesting, exciting topic for many of us involved in the discussion. And I have to say, personally, I've been really looking forward to today's webinar. For those who don't know me, I'm Simon Phipps, one of the founders of the Digital Insurer, ordinarily based in Hong Kong, but right now kind of trapped in the UK. And for those of you who've registered, you'll see that we're looking to get in some really interesting, I think, very topical questions around how this area of technology, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, is kind of making inroads into the insurance sector, particularly from a Hong Kong and Asia perspective, but of course also considering applications and potential around the world. So we're going to kind of get into these questions a little bit later on and unpack them as we go. We've got a fantastic range, I guess, of speakers and contributors today to the panel discussion as well. They're up in front of you now on the screen. We'll introduce these as we come or as we move through the session rather than going through them all now, but just a quick thanks in advance to all of the participants today for what is undoubtedly going to be a really rich series of inputs and hopefully a fun and informative session for everybody involved as well. The way we're going to run today is a 90-minute webinar, some opening remarks just from myself and Latman I'll introduce in a second. Then we're going to firstly just tune ourselves in by kind of taking a look at blockchain initially from a global perspective and how the kind of adoption has been running over the last year or two before drilling down into more specifically looking at how Hong Kong and China have been sort of making progress, I guess, and a little bit of the outlook for the sector in those parts of the world. And then we're going to get into 3 live InsurTech pitches from some of the leading examples in Hong Kong of how this technology is being used to underpin new business models and new ways of doing things in the insurance space for customers, before moving in then to a panel discussion. And then we'll close with some quick updates from TDI and the FinTech Association in Hong Kong. So 90 minutes total. Most of you will be familiar with Zoom by now, of course, but please do take the opportunity to get involved and engage with that really rich group of participants that I just had up. They're all watching now to see what's coming in on chat and Q&A. So please use the facilities at the bottom of your screen to type in any thoughts you may have or questions. And we'll either sort of answer them as we go along or potentially bring your questions into the live panel session a little bit later on. So yeah, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. So this today's event is brought to you by the Digital Insurer, but very much in partnership with the FinTech Association in Hong Kong. And it's my pleasure to have Latman Lee, who co-chairs the InsurTech subcommittee of FTA HK, here today as well. Hi, Latman. Welcome again. And, great to have you involved in an exciting topic, right?
No, Simon. Exciting topic indeed. I think that it's interesting also that we see that the market for blockchain services is expected to grow exponentially over the next 5 years. Some studies are mentioning a compound annual growth rate of 50% or more. And we're expecting Asia will be front and center in that growth. So very excited to be here, Simon, as always.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you know, we're big fans of what you guys do in the committee, and we'll be coming back to you later, Latman, because you're going to kindly navigate us through the InsurTech pitch section as well as being involved in the panel. So thank you. I just wanted to just explain to everybody on today's call just a little bit of the context as to why we felt the time was right for having another sort of webinar focused on blockchain. And I'm sure you're all aware of the fact there's been a huge amount of media coverage, an increasing coverage over the last few months actually around not just, I guess, how the technology is being deployed in our industry. And on the left-hand side here, you can see a headline from each of the participants we're going to be hearing from later on around what they did and news interest in that. But also on the right, you can see a couple of headlines here around the more recent kind of upsurge, I guess, in interest and more corporate investment interest, as well as adoption and exploratory activity in the space, and DeFi as well as a broader sort of theme in our industry related to crypto and blockchain, which Martin will touch on in a few moments. So contextually, a lot of interest and a lot of noise now building in the kind of the press, both business and consumer. And I guess those of you who know the Digital Insurer will know we started this journey fairly early on, actually. Back in 2016, we ran our first webinar on blockchain. We ran one in 2018, a couple in 2019. And now I guess in part, we need to blame COVID for a slight lack of focus in this area on our part, but it's kind of overdue. So we're really pleased as a team to be running an event on this session, on this topic today. And the last kind of catalyst, I guess, for us was, and personally for me and Martin, who I'll introduce shortly, was Ethereum. And Ethereum as the price of an Ether token has been rising dramatically over the last year or so. And some of you will know we ran an event, actually, TDI and KPMG, back in 2016, actually, where we interviewed the co-founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin. And as part of that, we asked him for his thoughts on adoption in insurance and how likely it's going to move, how far and how fast. So I thought I would just share a 1-minute clip from that, and then we'll use that as a backdrop to get into it. So let me just run that video now.
And I think insurance actually is one of those areas in finance that could be relatively easy to apply to blockchains. I think the reason is that it's an area where it's basically just about finance and data. So like fairly simple building blocks, and I think data has been fairly freely accessible ever since the internet, and the finance side is becoming more and more freely accessible, especially with blockchain technology coming in. So there's a fairly natural combination, and I think we're seeing both individual companies starting to develop some applications like those flight insurance pilots, and no pun intended. And some fairly large insurance companies just getting interested in the technologies that are dipping their feet.
Yeah, and so how long do you think realistically it's going to take before we see wide-scale adoption and use of blockchain in the insurance sector?
A few years. I mean, I
Right.
think at this point it's a matter of how it's packaged and how to turn the basic idea into a kind of product that's easy for a mainstream consumer to use and understand.
So there we go. A few years, but relatively easy is the take from Vitalik. That was in 2016. So let's now start looking at it and how we've been getting on in the industry. And it's my pleasure, firstly, to introduce Martin, our editor, actually from the Digital Insurer, based in the UK, a little bit under the weather today. So Martin, thanks for making the effort and pulling out all the strings to be involved. I know beyond the good work you do on scanning the market and ensuring that our platform covers the right sort of stories all the time, you're personally interested in this space as well. So it's great to have you involved. Maybe you can just tune us in a little bit to some of the things you've been seeing over the last 12 or 18 months that can help set up the rest of today's discussion.
Great, Simon, thank you, and very excited to be here today. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. So yeah, next slide, please, Simon. So yeah, I'd like to give a quick overview of where we are, and we'll start with cryptocurrency broadly, but we're talking about blockchain technology development essentially. So just going to take this kind of top-down view into it. So if you take a look at this picture at the bottom of this first slide, it is somewhat suited to a quiz round asking what do all these things actually have in common. So let's unpick it a bit. So without dwelling too much on it, the Bitcoin price, which can be seen as a proxy for the wider crypto market and to some extent the wider blockchain market, though that is a bit of a red herring. We've seen a bit of a pullback from all-time highs in 2021. And the thing really I just want to point out here, without kind of focusing too much on price and speculation, is that every time we reach an all-time high in Bitcoin, we also reach an all-time high in market adoption, reach an all-time high in infrastructure, wider acceptance in developed and developing economies, more regulation that's being kind of fundamentally understood by institutions, and alongside that, greater institutional adoption. So price might pull back, but many of those metrics remain high and continue to grow. So why is crypto relevant to us in insurance? And as I say, the volatility we see in price is a red herring at this stage. There are already regulated crypto banks in the US now, like Anchorage, and that's leading to more integration of blockchain fundamentally, not just crypto, into traditional products like PayPal, the Cash App, Revolut, basically more mainstream consumer products are coming out. It's making cryptocurrency, but by extension, blockchain technology more accessible to consumers. And additionally, it's not just startups competing in this space anymore. Institutions want to get in. It's really not just about consumers, banks, and payments, which is kind of what we were led to believe in the early stages of crypto. That's a great way to transfer value across borders without a middleman. Consumers are now essentially developing a relationship with their crypto wallet. And millennials, for example, have a great affinity to crypto. They think it's cool, and they can see its potential as a form of smart banking. And more widely, that means that other financial products, and that includes insurance, can be built on top of those wallets that are already existing. And on top of that infrastructure that's already existing. And I think this will affect finance fundamentally. And further down the line, as Vitalik said as well, insurance. So what else do we have here? What is this cat and this kind of collage? Well, these are essentially one of the big developments we've seen in the last 18 months. These are non-fungible tokens, and they're essentially a blockchain development. It's a generic mechanism that can express ownership of anything. And at a very high level, it's part of the Ethereum blockchain, but I'm not going to get into that. So it's been made famous by the fact you could buy digital artifacts and own the actual unique ownership to it. In the same way you can buy the Mona Lisa, sure, you can have a print of the Mona Lisa, but only one person can own the original. And this cat here is worth about 170,000 US dollars. And this collage is worth about 69 million US dollars when it went on sale at Christie's. Now, what's really interesting about this and why it might become relevant to insurance in future is these can be real assets or digital products, and they allow, the NFT model allows you to grant access to things. It's not only a new form factor for digital media, but also I think eventually e-commerce. I'm going back to that concept of the crypto wallet. This is where you're going to start receiving goods and products. And I want to mention actually on that point as well, another big innovation that's taken place this year is the stablecoin market developing. And at this point, for over the past 18 months, that stablecoin market has grown to about 100 billion or so in circulation. Stablecoins do not fluctuate. They're another form factor of crypto, but they exist in existing wallets. And again, new products can be developed off the back of that. And regulators are also much more likely to view stablecoins as less of a liquidity risk to large institutions. So I think when you start putting all these elements together, you start growing an e-commerce and millennial type of infrastructure that really has the potential to layer more and more modular innovations, blockchain innovations on top of it. And I know that I'm talking here really about permissionless blockchains fundamentally. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about permissioned blockchains. But I think this is just a high level view of where things could go in a kind of decentralized future. So Simon, maybe you could take us to the next slide. So something I do want to jump into that I mentioned on the last slide, but didn't get into the details, is DeFi, decentralized finance. Now, this I think is probably the most fundamental development in crypto in the last 18 months in terms of its potential for the finance and by extension insurance sector. So Electric Capital called DeFi GitHub for finance, and it's GitHub for insurance by extension. It's an umbrella term for a variety of financial applications in crypto or blockchain geared towards disrupting financial intermediaries. Now, you could also call this open finance, I suppose, but it's distinct from blockchain, or the blockchain we're familiar with, because it expands on the use cases from simple value transfer to more complex use cases using things like smart contracts, which I'm sure we're going to hear about more in futures. And really, I think what the power of this is, it allows individuals to build hugely complex financial products. So I could, for example, want to build an insurance product, and I could pick 3 different modules that have already been developed, glue them together, and essentially almost build an end-to-end value chain of an insurance product. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a utopian vision, and I'm going to have a bit of a sense check on this in a moment as well, because that utopian vision is also full of utopian failures. So decentralized finance currently is extremely experimental. There is large risk. Money is lost within these systems on a regular basis. Security is low, and many of these systems are untested. However, what I would say with decentralized finance is that the way these things are built, the concept of fail fast is intrinsically built into them. So you're essentially building a bit of open source code that says, let's say this is a claim settlement module. And then this goes out to the market and people start testing it. Essentially, they start putting money into it. And that, because there's a financial incentive there to really crack it, your code is going to be tested in the most stress test way possible, and it's going to fail fast. However, after a certain amount of time, you'll see something called total locked value being quoted. And this is how much money is actually kept within decentralized finance modules. And total value is a good way to actually measure risk, because once you see a decentralized finance module that has a huge amount of total locked value in it, you can assume that this product has developed over a certain period of time and has grown security measures and security processes that have built confidence into it, and it's failing or succeeding right in front of you. So I think that's just something that worth looking at. And if you look at the size of the decentralized finance market, we're looking at about 50 billion in it at the moment, and it's grown through 2021. So Simon, let's just move on to the next slide for time. So just a couple of news items, but actually before I come on to these news items, I just wanted to also give that reality check from a Forrester report. And Forrester are a leading global market research company, and they recently published a report, Predictions 2021 Blockchain. And I think this is probably a little bit of a reality check for what I've been talking about. They said that globally 30% of blockchain projects will make the jump to production. And they say that virtually all those will run on enterprise blockchains, platforms from suppliers like Alibaba, Huawei, IBM, Microsoft, OneConnect, and Oracle. And permissioned blockchains will remain the order of the day. The proliferation of decentralized finance scams and speculative activity will drive executives with corporate reputations to protect away from those public blockchains for now. And finally, they mentioned China's national blockchain infrastructure and how that will roar ahead, while global and regional blockchain infrastructure initiatives will stay stuck in neutral. And that's probably looking at some of the ideas that are taking place in Europe. So just to give a quick global perspective on some of the interesting things that are taking place, nevertheless, in insurance, I think for one, it's always worth looking at the consortium B3I. They transitioned from a consortium to an independent company in 2018 and have more than 40 shareholders, many from the insurance industry. And it's worth keeping an eye on them in 2021 because they're upgrading their core product, B3I Re, to introduce a claims management feature and to extend additional reinsurance types and additional lines of business. So this is really something that's built by the industry for the industry. And I think it's always worth keeping an eye on how that progresses and how insurers are interacting with that company. I think one of the most interesting pieces of news I've seen actually is this KPMG, Intellect EU, who have launched a blockchain app to fight insurance fraud. And this seems like such an obvious use case that maybe someone like Vitalik was mentioning there, Simon, when you spoke to him, double dipping the idea that a claimant gets multiple insurers to pay out for the same incident is by KPMG estimates about 5 to 10% of the fraud payouts that insurers make. And it's a tricky one because insurers, of course, don't really want to share data with each other. So this is really where blockchain is such a great solution. Using the R3 Corda blockchain, it allows insurers to see their encrypted claim data, and then it uses an encrypted hardware black box to basically notify them when a claimant is trying to double claim. And that's a very simplified version of it, but I think that's kind of a good example of a very practical way insurers can share data in a very beneficial way and use that kind of permissionless or use that kind of lack of a requirement for a third party to see your data in a very kind of positive way for insurance. So I appreciate that's been a bit of a whistle stop, and I think I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit now, Simon, but I'm going to hand back to you and Charles, who I think Charles is going to jump in a bit more specifically into his insights into blockchain in Hong Kong China, and more widely the Asia region. Thanks a lot, Simon.
Yeah, Martin, thanks so much. And we definitely want to hear more from you a bit later. So go and take a Lemsip, get that voice recharged. But a perfect tune in for us all, I think, and a reminder of a lot of the exciting things going on, and also a perfect segue into Charles. And Charles, as welcome, and as Martin just mentioned, Forrester have done some pretty interesting research through their report that was released a few months ago. And as part of that, a key insight coming out is their expectation that China is going to continue to be, mainly, you know, the whole of China really is going to continue to be a powerhouse on the global stage when it comes to adoption and application of the technology. So we're going to be really interested in your insights on this. Charles, just for everyone's background, I got to know a few years ago. In fact, it was when we did those events with Vitalik, wasn't it, Charles? And when we bumped into each other just more recently, and we were reminiscing on those old times and the fun we'd had. And Charles has moved on to even bigger and better things now. And as part of what he does, he runs the Consensus sort of business in Asia Pacific. So it felt a perfect opportunity really to bring Charles back into a discussion around this with our community. And Charles, it's great to have you here. I know you've got far too much to be able to share in your mind, and certainly maybe in the slides as well for the time we've got. We've got about 10 minutes here to just tune people in, perhaps to some of your perspectives on the region, China, Hong Kong specifically. And of course, you wear a couple of hats here, because not only do you represent Consensus, but you were also the author of something called BlockCong, which hopefully you'll be able to tell us a little bit more about as well. But Charles, welcome again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Simon. Great to be here. Maybe if we can move to the next slide. I'd like to give you a little bit an overview of what we see at Consensus. Consensus is one of the world's largest blockchain engineering company. We help a lot the financial industry in general to kind of build the new infrastructure. And on the next slide, I'll try to give you an update on what we see in the insurance sector. And essentially, we see three things. We see insurance with blockchain. We see insurance on blockchain, and we see insurance for blockchain. So as a reminder, the blockchain technology is old enough, Bitcoin, Ethereum, 2009, 2015, and it brings all the value which were described before on the next slide. Transparency, the fact that you can verify data between you and your partners, you can trace data, you can trace contracts, and it accelerates essentially a lot of the flows within an insurance business. And on the next slide, we look a little bit at these three different opportunities for the insurance industry when it relates to the blockchain technology. So we're going to have a quick look and zap between insurance with, on, and for blockchain. And what we see mostly in China is we start with, on the next slide, the insurance with blockchain. So we see, of course, the giants like the Tencent Group or Ping An or OneConnect, which are multiple initiatives within the Chinese market, which is really hyper competitive, very much consumer driven, and very much selling directly. And this direct sales type of distribution in China has really pushed for the blockchain distribution, the blockchain implementation, and it's really helping to enhance and makes much more business. So on the next slide, we look a little bit at the different use case. Essentially, the first use case on insurance is data sharing between the different parties involved into an insurance blockchain transaction. And the next slide shows you as well how you get also beside data sharing, the policy administration, looking at how you can get proof of insurance, documenting and gathering the documentation about the legal disputes, the common documentations between the different parties involved, as well as the first notice of loss. On the next slide, we look at how in the insurance also handles claims. I think we have great examples later in the panel section. With our good friends from CryptoBlock and Mark from Galileo, but claims handling is really where I think the first pain point has been identified within the insurance industry, and where blockchain has been really helping to mitigate the double claims, automate as much as it could be on the processes, and managing also more the users in general. On the next slide, we look at the schedules how you can essentially track the provenance of the goods, track the ownership, making sure there is no counterfeits, and it's helping with the warranties in general within the insurance industry. On the next slide, we look at the reinsurance industry. So obviously, when you want to reinsure some of your contracts or some of your pool of contracts, there is a lot of due diligence which is involved, and that's where a very tidy system will help you to essentially communicate better with your reinsurers and get updates or get the base deal. And that's one use case which is starting to emerge also here in the space of blockchain. Next slide, please. Insurance on blockchain. So we move from insurance with blockchain to insurance on blockchain. And what we see on the next slide is the different type of use case which brings blockchain some added value, which is not possible to be done with the existing infrastructure, which is more or less close to banks working very much on silos. And next, Simon, please. Looking at how we can look on index-based insurance with parametrics, looking at how the smart contract can automate all the little steps of the process and making sure the smart contract guarantees the execution as well. On the next slide, we look at another one, which is the flight delays. It's a use case which has been interestingly developed some time ago, but which did not really get any final market fit, I would say. Even though there is quite a few premiums which are being paid in this industry, and the use case of blockchain for this specific use case is oracles. How you essentially bring into your smart contract data from the real world in a trustable manner, so that different parties will not challenge the data feed. Next slide, please. And we see also a lot of distribution when you do insurance with blockchain. I think Galileo will highlight some of this great use case in production now in developing countries where there is not that much of infrastructure, where the insurance and the insurers are building their infrastructure with the growth of these markets, and they can essentially migrate directly or leapfrog in terms of infrastructure and going directly with blockchain. Next slide, please. Blockchain identity is always a use case which is a bit lagging behind. I think we've seen a lot of progress in China due to their relationship with data privacy and data in general. So digital identity is a big cost of signing and opening new policies. And I believe in the next 2 to 3 years we're going to start to see blockchain-based identity eventually, after so many trials from different players. Next slide. Distribution. There is always this, I would say, legacy system of distributions of insurance, which are a little bit challenged by the newcomers. If you think of markets like Hong Kong, where you've got more than 100 licensed insurance companies, this is really places where people start to think of distributing differently and what are the technology which are available, and that's where blockchain helps to tokenize and launch new products. Which are otherwise either expensive or not making sense from a P&L perspective. Next slide. Peer-to-peer insurance, interesting concept which is not yet proper implementation, I would say, due to many different things. The oracles are one problem, but also the pool of money available for the different type of risk. So that's one of the issue we've seen for this use case, which might be eventually surfacing in the coming years, but which did not yet get the traction it deserves. Next slide, please. And the insurance for blockchain, which is interesting, with this industry, which was mentioned earlier by Martin, of DeFi and different blockchain-based activity, we see new type of insurers, an insurance product coming on for the activities and for the product which are deployed on blockchain. So one of them, which we highlight on the next slide, is really expanding the capacity of to insure new risk, and looking at how, for example, here custodians such as Curve have been able to secure, due to their transparency and due to their technology, getting their digital asset activity on the blockchain being assured by companies such as Munich Re. Next slide, please. And what it really brings is a due diligence. And it's really what brings and takes all the time and efforts from everyone to assess the risk, to assess the resale of the policies, and these blockchain capabilities are starting to be implemented within blockchain, within insurance companies. But I believe what is probably kind of creating a friction right now within the insurance industry is their journey into blockchain started a little bit later after the capital market in general, and we've seen a lot of I would say issues with consortiums of insurers which have decided to build together some kind of system between members, let's say 5 initial members into an insurance consortia. But what we find is building this private blockchain is like building an intranet, and it's hard to maintain. It's very hard to grow from a commercial perspective. You have to go and knock at doors and convince people that they should be connecting and paying the fees to connect to your blockchain, and it essentially kind of limits the reach of the growth of these blockchain initiatives. So I believe the second wave of growth on blockchain technology within the insurance industry will come from the kind of migration from private blockchains to more public networks. The public networks now have the scalability. There is also some growth in terms of standardizations for the different smart contracts and technology to use on blockchain. And this will help this migration from private blockchains to public blockchain. And I think this public blockchain will really enable larger ecosystem around the insurers to connect easily into these platforms, these blockchain business networks, and really be the catalyst to make this blockchain in the insurance industry a reality, but at a much larger scale. Next slide, please. I'll go very quickly here, Simon. I want to give some time for my fellow panelists and speakers. Consensus is one of the largest blockchain company working with regulators and large consortiums from the finance industry to more fast-moving consumer goods such as P&G. On the next slide, I give a quick highlight on what we do. So if you are a technical person, you might be familiar with some of our product, Truffle, MetaMask, or Quorum. And on the next slide, I give maybe a highlight to some free documentation we publish every quarter about DeFi. Martin was highlighting this kind of transformation we see in finance in general, and there is a quarterly report which is issued by Consensus every quarter. So feel free to subscribe and see what's happening in finance, but also in the insurance industry. And next slide, I guess, if I may, Simon, do a little bit of advertising. You were mentioning BlockKong. So on the next slide, I share with you the cover of the book. BlockKong is a fascinating book. I had a lot of fun to write it. It covers and gives you a snapshot of some of the champions of blockchain here in Hong Kong. Hong Kong always deserves some better marketing, and I've been trying to contribute to that in an humble manner. So it's a very fun read. 21 interviews around 21 blockchain entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. It's done a little bit like lunch with the FT column in the Financial Times, where we share a breakfast and we have a conversation in a casual manner. And one of the guests is Mark from Galileo, talking about the insurance industry. So I guess as a good complement from the event of today, you might have a look and possibly download on Amazon the Kindle, or order the paper version of BlockKong to deep dive into the blockchain ecosystem of the city. Thank you so much, Simon.
Charles, thank you so much. And we'll get into Mark in a moment and the other Hong Kong presenters. But I was just reflecting on the content there. Firstly, just to say, for those who may be interested in getting a copy of Charles's slides, we will be sharing his contact details later, so you can reach out to him to get them. Secondly, Charles, I mean, back in 2016, when we were first doing some events together, I remember a couple of skeptical, fairly senior people in the industry coming to me and saying, this is just a solution trying to find a problem, which is often a description used for new and emerging technologies. Well, there's no doubt from what you've just shared now, there are plenty of problems and opportunities, of course, for this technology. The question becomes, well, okay, we've solved that first area of cynicism. We've now got plenty of problems. Is the technology actually being able to be applied to actually solve them and take advantage of market opportunities? So that's the next section we're going to start focusing on. And as I mentioned, and I think Martin mentioned, in terms of the Forrester Insights, Greater China is regarded as very much the powerhouse globally for this space at the moment. And of course, what place better within Greater China than Hong Kong to use as a sort of a shining light of 2 or 3 leading deployments of the technology in our sector specifically. So really looking forward now to drilling into that a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is, if I can just navigate this and hand over to Lapman, who's going to take us through this next segment on InsurTech pitches and updates, because we've heard from Mark before. We've heard about the theory and some of the hard work on the build, but things have moved on, right? So Lapman, let me hand to you, and then you can sort of introduce the speakers and just tell me when to move slides between you, please.
Sounds good. Let me keep it very short. So upcoming, we'll have 3 CEOs and co-founders of InsurTechs in Hong Kong. If you look at Hong Kong, probably over the years, we have now seen a steady increase of InsurTech firms. I think the latest count is probably over 45. And Mark is definitely one of the movers and shakers here. So without further ado, I start with Mark. Mark.
Thank you, Lapman, and thank you, Simon, for inviting me along today. So we have a short amount of time, so let me get into it. Next slide. Thanks, Simon. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard of us before, Galileo Platforms is a B2B technology provider working in the insurance sector. What we set out to do was eliminate the duplication of data and the reconciliations that go on in the industry between the different industry participants. We wanted to create an ability so that, in particular, the distributor and the insurer were both looking at with confidence at the exact same view of the policy, of the claim, etc., and not having to depend on each other's APIs or those sorts of things for data. We wanted to be able to share the smart contract, share the policy information so that both parties have a copy of that data and can trade against it with confidence on behalf of the customer, updating in real time their counterparties. And this extends right up the ecosystem to the insurer. In the end, what we've created is this ability for insurers and distributors to build an ecosystem with straight-through processing, real-time movement of transactions, and everyone still carrying their own copies of the data, which everyone seems to believe is a really important part of this, and not depending on a central software as a service type provision. In the end, the client gets a far better digital experience, and that's what we're out to actually create. Next slide, thanks, Simon. Why do we do this? The real big market we're going after is the emerging middle class segments in the developing markets around the world, and particularly here in Asia. Here in Asia, we have millions of people entering the addressable space for insurance products, yet the insurers are struggling to reach them for the reasons you see along the bottom of the screen. They tend to have product challenges and distribution challenges with products that are often designed to be sold by agents and brokers and relationship managers in bank and aren't open for digital distribution. Their legacy systems add to the cost. Most of the systems used by insurers across Asia, you can trace their heritage back to the 1980s. They've been over-enhanced and hardened through years of modifications. They're difficult to modify and create an agile environment. And these systems also contribute to the business process challenges. You know, they're handoffs between the distributor and the insurer and within the insurer. And if you're a reinsurer, you kind of get a monthly upload of data. And all of this stops them being able to reach this new emerging market. This new emerging market is at a lower premium threshold to what they've seen before. It can be right down at the microinsurance level or just above that level in that sweet spot that exists between when it's cost effective to have an agent engaged and when you really want the person to be digitally servicing themselves. And that's what we wanted, to be able to enable digital distributors to work with digital insurers and be able to operate in a really low-cost manner to deliver these products out to the customers. In the more mature markets, we also can offer the same sorts of capabilities for the millennially minded customers. In this market in particular, the products we tend to be talking to people about are health insurance products, where our platform can provide really flexible products like an individual health product where people can literally pick and choose which particular coverages they'd like to have and which particular coverages they'd like each family member to have, and be able to adjust the premium of the product accordingly for those product selections. So two really big emerging markets with really flexible products that we push out there. Next slide. Thanks, Simon. So the way we've done this, and what we've actually done, is taken the functionality you typically find in one of those 1980s legacy COBOL systems, and we've encoded it in smart contracts on the blockchain. Charles mentioned before Consensus's core product, and that's what we've used. So essentially, it's Ethereum with overlays on top of it that provide permissioned encrypted access. So all the transactions are encrypted between the counterparties. You must be a permission member of the blockchain to access it, and it creates a very reliable and cost-efficient environment. It also gives us an environment where we can propagate transactions every 250 milliseconds if we need to, which is how we create a real-time environment. We're not waiting for some big block build process that only takes place every so many minutes, etc. We are rafting transactions and creating a very fast-moving network. And it's a big build. We take the full functionality. We start right at the point of quotation, go through the purchase life cycle with payments and claims and changes for customer servicing and the whole renewals process. All of that is big. There's over 175 smart contracts that come together to create this environment for the counterparties to interact against. And it's not just the insurers, distributors, and the reinsurers, it's also banking partners, healthcare providers for doing medical claims processing. And we have a whole integration framework for connecting to other technology service providers, such as eKYC providers, claims AI engines, and other engines that become part of this industry. So it is a very open platform, which actually means that, for example, the example we have at the moment of how we've gone live, the insurer can be using an entirely different set of APIs to what the distributor is using in order to interact with the blockchain through our integration capabilities and integration frameworks, really creating an open environment and an easy way for the different parties to interoperate with each other. Next slide, please, Simon. And as Simon mentioned earlier, and we're live, Singlife launched into the Philippines market in October 2020 with GCash, the largest wallet in the Philippines, as its distribution, as its first distribution partner. GCash is over 30 million customers using its wallet across the Philippines, and it's a totally purchase on your wallet digital distribution method. So users of GCash can select their G-Insure option. They can go in to there and pick one of a number of Singlife products that are now available on G-Insure. The products range from dengue fever insurance, COVID-19 insurance, and income protection, with a raft of additional products in the pipeline that will be going live in the coming months. We've worked on a number of products that are sitting there ready to go live with Singlife. And we're also working with Singlife to introduce other distributors for them. It's been a huge success. Since the public launch in October, we've had over 200,000 policies go in force using our technology. Now, I want to emphasize, it runs on the blockchain. There is no other policy administration system managing this. Everything that you need to do to run digital insurance and run it all digitally is happening through the platform. That can be everything from dealing with retries for monthly premiums if the person doesn't have sufficient amount of money in their wallet, lapsing of policies, reinstating them as well, once the person catches up with their premiums. Grace periods, which we're required to handle, people who cancel during their free look period and refunding that premium back into their Gcash wallet. All of this takes place using smart contracts on the blockchain and a whole ecosystem as well of databases, identity management solutions, analytics engines, and other components that actually run in the background on the actual node for Singlife and Gcash to access. Of those 200,000 policies which have been in force, 100,000 have already expired. These policies don't have to be there forever. Many of these policies were short-term COVID-19 insurance policies that had a lifetime of only 3 months. A lot of those were pushed out in a promotion with Globe Mobile in the Philippines, one of the shareholders of Gcash, who were giving their customers the option of using their points which they earned on paying their mobile phone accounts to buy COVID-19 and dengue fever insurance through Gcash. And again, very easy for us to expand out and handle points and other methods of actual payment mechanisms. Our biggest day in production, 10,000 new policies in force in a single day. To put a perspective on this, the life insurance industry in the Philippines typically does 5,000 policies a day across all insurers. So the volumes are there, the traction is there with the customers, much more to come with other people that we're working with in the marketplace, and also with Singlife as they continue to expand in the Philippines. Next one, Simon. So the benefits that come from this are many, but in particular, I want to emphasize a few. Firstly, expanding into new channels and segments. This is a market segment, if you think of that Singlife example, that's not typically there for the insurers today. So instead of insurers, as they typically do, poaching agents off each other and just trying to carve up the existing size of the pie differently, what we're interested in doing is working with insurers to get into markets they are not in today and expanding that size of the pie, giving them access to new digital channels, to new market segments. Because it's all straight through process, it is massive reduction in errors and costs and everything. There's no manual entry of data. Everything is straight through processed, right through to claims processing. We have a claims triage mechanism that enables us to look at all of the benefits, all of the limits for a particular individual and pass the claims assessment an information-rich environment about the claim and whether it qualifies for payment or not, making it faster for the claims assessor and allowing them to focus on the documentation and make sure that that is aligned with the claim that the person has entered into their mobile phone. This is really important, this low end of insurance, because while you can get the new business straight through, it's often the claims cost that stops this being a profitable business. It's faster and cheaper product innovation. We can build products very quickly. The fastest product we took to market with Singlife took us just 8 days to build and user acceptance test with their team. So very fast turnaround and into markets. All of the data, I said we capture everything right from the point of quotation. All of this goes into databases which become the perfect source for data and analytics information. And Singlife is doing this to go back to customers, to upsell customers into different product segments, etc. It becomes a very rich piece of data. We know when customers drop out of the sales cycle without paying, for instance, so that Singlife can go back and maybe give them a different proposition. For example, suggest they do a monthly rather than annual premium. And finally, it's perfect for these direct digital sales channels. We built it for that purpose, and that's where we tend to focus with our insurers. It also enables them to readily engage with other startups, particularly in areas like eKYC processing and claims processing as well. So that's our story. Thank you everyone for listening and for the time we've had here today. Thank you very much, Simon and the TDI team.
Thanks, Mark. Maybe before you leave, on the one hand, we'll see a number of questions in the Q&A box, but given the timing, I may suggest people to individually approach Mark about that. Their email addresses will be available at the end. Very quick question for myself, if I may, Mark. So for me, it's very heartening to see that the Hong Kong insurtech companies are expanding in Southeast Asia. I'm seeing some of the firms are expanding with strategic partnership in mainland China. You're doing that as well with Amodo, for example, in Thailand. Maybe a quick question: how do you choose your partners, and how do you ensure implementation-wise that that it's a win-win situation, basically?
Yeah, we've got a number of partners out there, and I guess it just comes down to the particular insurer and the particular problem we're trying to solve. You know, we do have partnerships with Amodo is one. We have a partnership with DST, actually, the biggest provider of legacy systems in this part of the world. And, you know, and in some of those cases, like DST, for example, we partner with them in countries. A perfect example where we have done some work with them is in Thailand, where we need Thai BAs and Thai staff to be on the ground to work with the insurer that we can't provide ourselves. And so their experience in insurance and their local language and knowledge of local regulations becomes invaluable to us when we're working with companies like that. Amodo is also great. It's one of the leading telematics firms, and we've been working with them on a few options, including an innovative personal accident insurance product designed for people who do pillion riding on the backs of motorbike taxis, a very dangerous thing to do. So they're covered should they have an accident during that time. So some of these partners we work with to create innovative products, and sometimes they have the experience in the market which we're trying to enter.
Great. No, thanks for sharing that. Let's move to our next speaker, to William, co-founder and CEO of MediConsent. He has a background in actuarial sciences, and I had the pleasure of also moderating one of his earlier panels. So, William, over to you.
Hey, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to introduce our business to you, and I appreciate the Q&A sessions. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Next slide, please. First of all, a very quick introduction of our company. We are an insurtech company founded in 2018, and our vision is very simple. We want to automate insurance claim and make insurance usable by everyone. For that, I mean, really, the customer, they shouldn't be required to make a tedious claim process in order to enjoy the benefit of the insurance. I think this is, as an industry, that we should do for our customer, because if I work in insurance for over 10 years as an actuary pricing product, but all the time I hear complaint about the claim process. And if there is a solution that can solve this claim process once and for all, that should be the way to go. And why we use blockchain as a solution is really because the promise that it can automate everything. Actually, I think that is a very relevant question to ask whenever you guys come up with a solution, whether it should be solved by blockchain or not. Actually, without blockchain, actually you can do every automation. That's very seriously true. You can do all the API connection, you can do all the process without blockchain. The technology is already there. It's possible to automate everything, and you shouldn't see any paper in the world if everyone are able to do that. But why still there is still many processes? It's not because there is no technology. Right? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. No problem.
Okay, because I see a comment. Because actually we can automate all the things without using blockchain. But then actually there is a very big problem in our digital design. Whenever you want to automate things, there are someone who build the system. And all parties will have to rely on the integrity of the one who controls the system or who build the system. And in reality, that party seldom come forward unless there is a government body to create the system for everyone, or there are someone who are trustworthy by everyone to create that. That typically doesn't exist. So that's why the blockchain need to be there to resolve the issue of trust. I will elaborate more on the detailed solution that we create. Just a very quick overview of the numbers that we have. We currently signed up with over 10 insurance partners in Hong Kong, serving over 600,000 customers. And we built the first in Asia blockchain ecosystem that automate every claim process end to end. And we now process the claim without using a single piece of paper. We are also very strong in the technical side. We are the corporate member of Linux Hyperledger, and that's the solution that we use in implementing our solution. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, talking about automating claims. Actually, you know, to automate a claim, especially for health insurance, you need multiple parties involvement. First of all, you need the insurance company to participate, and you also need the medical provider to cooperate in order to automate claim. Otherwise, why the medical provider are not charging your customer when they are obtaining the medical service? As a matter of fact, the situation in Hong Kong is like this. Different insurance company, they would cooperate with medical organization, which we call medical networks. And those medical networks, they would sign up individual doctors in their panel. And different insurance company, they employ different medical panels. And as a customer, actually, you can only visit the doctors that are within the medical networks employed by the insurance company if you want to have the cashless service. That system sounds working, isn't it? But in reality, it's not quite working, because if I look at Hong Kong, such a developed region, I just walk in a random doctors, and there is a 90% chance that I cannot get my cashless service, even though my insurance policy level is quite high. There is only 10% of the doctors covered in the whole market. Typically, you won't find those small doctors like Chinese medicine practitioner. You don't have dentists. You don't have bone sector that you can, although it's covered by your insurance, but you cannot use any cashless service. And also, unfortunately, you don't find any good doctors. Typically, if you walk into a network, doctors that accept the cashless service, you won't find those very high-end doctors, even though your insurance could well cover it, or you are willing to pay for it. And even if you can use the cashless service, typically it only means you don't need to work with the claim process, but still paper is needed. You will be asked to sign on a piece of paper that is typically three set of copy, one for the insurance company, one for yourself, and one for the medical network, and maybe another one for the kid. And then this complicated process, moving the data using the traditional means of using the paper. And finally, even with this kind of system, and as you know, the insurance company, the insurance policy operating in Hong Kong typically have worldwide coverage. But then, if you look at your cashless service, can you go cashless in other countries like Singapore? No, sorry, no. Although the insurance company, they have global network, they have local cashless facility for their Singapore country. They have local cashless facility for the Hong Kong region. But then you cannot use cashless service by move even when you are traveling, although the coverage scope covering, because no insurance company could afford the effort to connect the worldwide system, because all the connectivity will require certain integration. And without a big volume of business of people floating from Hong Kong to Singapore, they not worthwhile to build a system connecting the two. So that's how the situation of our existing automation. And next time, please. So we come up with an idea of automate the whole thing. First of all, we create a blockchain network, a blockchain platform that could include all the providers, all the medical doctors, all the hospital, all the outpatient clinics. By signing up to our platform, you download an app and then do the KYC there. We verify you are legal to operate in the country, then you become one of the service provider who can provide cashless service. And because we now use digital signature to verify the transaction, so you will not be afraid that a fishy doctor are inputting a claim transaction without the consent of the patient. So we are free to sign up as many providers as possible. And the second point is really the merit of doing the whole thing through blockchain. We automate the whole thing using smart contract, meaning that once the system is set, it is always like this. All parties can be sure that the system is always the same, unless with mutual consent. So in that way, we can really automate the whole thing without having to rely on trust between the parties. So a Hong Kong insurer can work with a medical provider, even in Africa, without worrying the integrity of that provider. So we eliminate the issue of trust in doing the business to finally build a single open platform that allows every insurance company and every medical provider to do cashless claim transaction on a worldwide basis. And that's all of our presentation. I appreciate your comment.
No, thanks, William. Thanks very much for that. And please do answer any question on the Q&A that you'll find. And given the time, let's move to Duncan. So Duncan is the founder and CEO of Crypto BLK. He was the head of fintech at the S3 before, and he's going to share with us the Midas initiative that many of you probably will have known. Duncan, over to you.
Thanks, Lepman. Thanks, everybody. So it's great to be here. So in the coming few minutes, what I'm going to do is to just go through the Midas system, the multi-insurance DRT-based authentication system. So next slide, please. So basically, Midas is it's kind of like a consortium spearheaded by the Hong Kong Federation of Insurers, and CryptoBlock is basically the technical partner. We are so proud working together with Hong Kong FI to set up this one. This is already a live network since December 2018. So it's been running live for more than 2.5 years. So we have a bunch of insurers and also some sub-agents participated, and also some government organizations as well, like Hong Kong Police Force, Transport Department, and also car owners will be able to check their insurance information on this system. So next slide. We are actually about this system. It is the first industry-wide application of blockchain technology in the space of multi-insurance in Asia. And the adoption rate is picking up gradually, especially it's getting much faster recently. We have 60 multi-insurance. It's about 60% of the market share. We also have a bunch of policy holders. And also we have the Transport Department involved. So basically this system is used for connecting all the insurers together, together with the Transport Department and also the Hong Kong Police. So we actually consider Midas as a very important foundation or a platform for this industry-wide effort. And we hope that we can have more applications running on top of it. Having said that, we are actually thinking the DRT as a catalyst for helping the Hong Kong insurance industry to accelerate on the Transport Department, and also helping Hong Kong at large to transform into a smart city. So next slide. A little bit about the technical part. The importance of this platform is to make sure that there's no personal identifiable information on the blockchain system. So we would like to make sure that it's privacy preserving, and also it can support some of the privacy compliance requirement, including the GDPR. For example, if some of the users want to opt out from the system, or they would like to remove some of the information from the blockchain, naturally this blockchain does not have any PII information there. So we don't need to worry about that. It's also a typical on-chain, off-chain architecture. And also we make use of some special hash or encryption algorithm to make sure that no hacker will be able to retrieve any of the information without any of the secret key being held by the insurers, individual insurers. So even as the network operator like CryptoBlock, we will not be able to access or change any of the information over there. So next slide, please. So this one is basically like a snapshot about one piece of data stored on the blockchain. As you can see, there is a bunch of hexadecimal digits, which basically represents the anonymized ID of a particular car owner. And this one is anonymized in a way that only the insurer has the key. So as I mentioned, a hacker or even CryptoBlock will not be able to retrieve that because this is one way. And also on this piece of data, as you can see, we have the chassis number, we have the plate number, and more importantly is to have the validity date of this cover note so that, for example, the transport department will be able to check whether a particular vehicle is being insured or not during the license renewal process. So next slide, please. And sorry about this. This is a little bit complicated, but basically this illustrates, for example, from transport department's perspective, how the transport department will be able to verify whether a particular car is insured or not. So the whole idea is the following. So the transport department will collect the information of the Hong Kong ID or the insurer name from the car owner. And then the transport department is going to contact the particular insurer, and the insurer, that particular insurance company, will compute an anonymized ID and then go to the blockchain and check whether the particular cover note exists or not. So during that checking, there's no personal identifiable information being shared or transferred from an insurance company to the blockchain. And the blockchain is kind of like an oracle or black box to tell the transport department whether a particular cover note exists or not. So with this design, we can actually just segregate the information from the insurance company to the blockchain. And this one is kind of expandable, that we actually expanded the whole thing to the sub-agent, and also we can expand it to the transport department and some other entities in the future. So next slide. And as a summary of the features of this Midas system, we enable multi-stakeholder verification, which means multiple parties like car owner, law enforcement, or transport departments will be able to verify the authenticity real time. Real time, we are actually talking about a few seconds, or we can make it even faster for making the block creation much faster. And also it's privacy by design, which means there's no PII blockchain system. So the last slide, please. So basically, as a summary over here, what we are seeing, I'm not sure whether the slide is advanced to the last slide or not. But basically, what we are trying to do over here is to set up a platform for the entire industry. And the multi-insurance authentication is just the first step. And in the future, actually, we have already done is to do the integration with the Hong Kong OGCIO initiated IAM Smart login for individual car owners to check their cover note. And in addition to that, this will enable us to do more applications on this Midas platform by imagining this platform as an industry-wide platform for enabling all the insurers and also other stakeholders to make use of this platform. So for example, we are in discussion about the taxi driver's electronic identity on the Midas, and also we are talking about digitizing the cover note as well as policies. So later on at the panel, the Hong Kong FI CEO, Selina, is going to be there to share more insights and also to answer questions. Thank you very much. Back to Lapman.
All right, no, thanks very much for sharing that. I had heard a similar presentation before, but it always amazes me all the work and effort that has been done to create this foundation. And I also think that having this foundation with all the stakeholders lined up through the effort of yourselves, Selena, and others in the industry, that there will be more that Hong Kong as an insurtech hub can do. So thanks a lot, Duncan. And with that, I'm passing it over to Simon for the panel.
Thank you very much, Lapman, and thanks very much to all our presenters just now. I mean, what a great set of examples, I guess, of real use cases, particularly in our sort of neck of the woods in Hong Kong, as part of Asia. So we're going to get into this a little bit more in a moment. The infographic we shared before this event, and those of you who've picked up on the title will know that when we said blockchain and insurance here for good, obviously there's a bit of a play on words here. Firstly, we're asking whether it's actually getting traction and is going to be something that actually does become meaningful in our insurance sector. But also, of course, here for good has a sort of socio-economic inference as well, and particularly for getting to markets that are, say, underbanked and underserved from an insurance point of view. Is there a particular opportunity for our industry and this technology as part of that there? So we're going to get into all of that, and the panel discussion for the next sort of 10 or 15 minutes is going to focus on some of that. But I wanted to bring in somebody that Duncan's just mentioned that we haven't got to until now. We've kind of been saving the best till last in some ways. So Selena Lau, actually, since I think it's since Midas was launched, she's very much involved in mobilizing that initiative, has now become the chief executive of HKFI in Hong Kong. Selena, it's a real pleasure to have you back on one of our discussions, and thank you for setting aside the time. And as Duncan said, I think if it's okay, I'd like to start with you. And I guess just listening to what was achieved with Midas, it's not just about the technology, but I would have thought the hardest thing of all is getting the whole industry to agree on doing something, particularly when it comes to use of technology. So I'd be really interested in perhaps the sort of 2 or 3 biggest challenges you saw as an organization in kind of aligning the industry around using a blockchain solution like this.
Thanks, Simon. I have got more than 2 or 3 challenges to share here.
I'm sure.
Well, you know that Hong Kong is a very special market. We have 160 insurers in a very small city like ours, and 139 of them are our members, and 46 of them write motor insurance. So you see, when we want to launch something for insurers, we have to talk to 46 insurers. And so not all insurers are so involved or so tech savvy. So there are pros to convince them there is a need and to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And more importantly, we are not only talking about ourselves. The users include the police, the transport department, and we also have the insurance authority, our regulator, on our side as well. We also have to deal with the privacy issues. So the privacy commissioner was also involved. So you see, there are lots of engagement and communications with different stakeholders throughout the whole time. And for an industry-wide platform like ours, compliance and legal issues are always playing a big role. So we have to make sure that this solution is compliant 110% because we are financial institutes. We cannot afford to be punished or reprimanded by the regulators. So we have to make sure that this solution is 110% compliant with all the rules, not only locally, we have to make sure that it's GDPR compliant as well. But lucky that we've got blockchain. It solves most of the problem with PII. So that's why we picked this solution, and we are very lucky to have a good partner, CryptoBlock, to work with us. And I think that there is also another very important element going forward is that we have to make sure that Midas stays relevant to the market and stay relevant to the users. So that's why, like what Duncan said, we're looking for ways to expand it to use it for other applications as well, in addition to motor insurance.
Very good. Well, look, I've picked up in the last couple of years that Midas has been recognised really at different sort of levels, and you've won quite a lot of awards, or the initiative has, in the broader fintech space. And I guess that's quite a busy space. There's a lot of contenders for these awards. So what in particular have you felt has made it stand out from the crowd and won these accolades, Selena?
Yeah, I think what Mark and William have just presented are great solutions as well. But maybe because ours stands out because it involves so many stakeholders and parties. And you have to, and when a blockchain applies to everyone, and it's not only for profit, it's for the whole community, it's for good. So I think it makes us stand out from the rest. And there is a very important element, is the public-private partnership. I think we are a very classic example of how the industry, how the private sector can work closely with the public sector, like the Transport Department and the Hong Kong Police Force. We can work together towards the same goal. And also because we've got a very particular pain point, we have thousands of forged motor policies at the very beginning. That's why we work together so well, because we're all aiming for the same direction. We have to do away all these forged documents so that we've got a common goal, which is for the good of Hong Kong, and we work it together. And the other thing is special about Midas, I think, is because even though it's a solution developed in Hong Kong for the Hong Kong market, but it's scalable. And it is also applicable elsewhere. I think anywhere in the world, we insurers know that there are so many fraudulent cases every day in different markets. So I think Midas can be applicable to any market to help to eliminate unauthenticated policies.
Yeah, no, fascinating. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to unpack the future development plans too much. But one other final thought was going through my mind before we move on a bit to reflections from other panelists was, it's hard enough for insurtechs to work with one insurer. Working across the entire insurance industry, it must be even more challenging. Although, to be fair to the HKFI, if they want, if they were going to partner with anybody, probably better to partner with yourselves, because I know you guys are very collaborative. But do you have any tips for other insurtechs and startups out there that are looking to collaborate at an industry level?
Right. I think when I listen to Mark and William's presentation, they are very much on the right track because they address the pain points of the industry. So when you think about something that you want to do, talk to the industry or talk to the industry body so that you know what people are facing, what are our challenges, what we need to address. So I think it helps. And I think when insurers in Hong Kong, we have a wide range of insurers, super international conglomerates, as well as some very local insurers. So you have to find something to address the need of this wide range of insurers. Make sure that your tech is applicable to most of them if you don't have a very niche market. And also make sure that you have sufficient tech support for our insurers, because insurers have so many priorities. But IT resources is limited. So when there are different priorities, your tech may work, but they may not be on top of their agenda. So make sure that you've got all the support you can provide to the insurer so that they will look at your tech before the others.
Very good. Some excellent advice there. Hopefully people are taking notes. Now, I'm just going to move us on a little bit. Thanks again, Selina. One of the things that TDI we did earlier this year was we launched something that's hopefully now up on your screen called the TDI Tech Map 21. And it was our attempt to look at all these buzzwords, all these different types of technology that are bubbling up that have the potential to improve our industry for customers. And we kind of mapped them all, as you can see in front of you, with the horizontal axis, the x-axis, looking at kind of the whether things are already established, whether they're kind of moving to become mainstream and established, or whether they're still early days. And then on the vertical axis, the y-axis, we looked at the potential long-term implications and impact on our industry. And you can see we've got a whole bunch of them there, from cloud, which is pretty, vanilla now and established, through to the other end of the extreme, AGI and quantum computing. And you can see where we put blockchain. So we had it as, and we still really have it as a kind of early days. It's still some way out before we get to mainstream adoption, but potentially a really significant contributor to the industry getting better. So very much in that high to very high end state impact category. And we're interested, I'm going to speak to the panelists in a minute, but we're interested in your views on this. So going to launch a quick poll now, and if Brooke can bring that up. So what we'd like you to do is take a look at the positioning and where do you think blockchain should be positioned. You can select whether you want to go more to the left, more to the right, more up, more down, or you think it's about right where it is. So if you can just take a few moments to answer that question. And maybe in the meantime, and you can sort of not listen too much to Charles if you haven't voted yet, but maybe I'll just bring in Charles on this question of how we've got blockchain currently positioned, Charles. And What are your thoughts? Is that about fair, or would you move it around a little bit yourself?
I think that's a hard one. I think it's right it's in the right position right now. We just have to be a little bit patient and support everyone who wants to push the topic forward. So it's about right where it should be.
Okay, cool. Lapman, you want to change the position?
Yeah,
or
well,
are you happy with
I think there are probably a number of things happening in the market that may push it a little bit more to the left. For example, with ESG, sustainability front and center with everyone, blockchain in combination with AI, with Internet of Things, has the potential to do more for us to meet these ESG goals. For example, you could use data token to share information that you gather through satellites, through wireless sensors from the environment. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Also, is to advertise our Hong Kong InsurTech, given the traction we're seeing from them, and also collaboration between InsurTech firms. I think I'm seeing it moving slowly to the left.
Okay, good. Martin, if you're still on and your voice is recovered a little bit, any views from you?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Yeah, I was looking at this. I think this is quite interesting, and I would maybe go back to that blockchain for good concept you mentioned, and say that we could maybe move this around depending on whether what type of market it's in. One thing I would say is, and again, maybe I'm presenting this utopian vision, but blockchain has the potential to allow some emerging markets to, I think the concept is kind of leapfrog other nations, where if you're just starting and you're using blockchain from the start, in the same way China sort of went mobile very early, then you've got a chance to actually build infrastructure from scratch on blockchain and build from there. And then maybe blockchain should be a little bit more moving to the mainstream for you. So maybe that's how I perceive it.
Yeah, very good. So let's see if we can load up the results, and then maybe Selena, see if any reflections from you on this. Can you see the results as well, Selena?
Yeah.
You can. So we've got about 40% saying it's about right where it is, and then probably the next strongest result is moving it more to the left, which is picking up on the comments from perhaps Lapman and Charles around maybe it's picking up pace a little bit for various reasons. Any comments from you, Selena, on those results?
I'll go with the majority. I think it's about right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. There's a subtlety to this chart as well, which I've realized, which is that we've got little arrows inside each of the titles. So maybe blockchain gets an extra arrow to show that the accelerator is kind of going down a little bit harder as we move forward. But I think it's been really great to see some of the examples of the technology being applied today in practice. So I guess maybe just a sort of question, just picking up on the infographic again, and let's just focus on the bottom right one there, really, of what's next for blockchain insurance over the next 2 to 3 years. And maybe Charles, I'll come to you first on this. I mean, do you think we're going to see now? Martin mentioned that there is more momentum building, and as there's more media coverage, adoption's increasing, seeing more corporate investment in different sort of assets, etc., within the space. Do you think it's we're not going to see another kind of crash in terms of the investment interest, and we're actually now with more adoption of, I don't know, companies like PayPal, Tesla jumping in and out, etc. There's rumors of Amazon getting involved. Do you think at a retail level we're going to see a much, we're going up a couple of rungs on the ladder and we're going to stay up there, and we're in the same kind of place for business applications in insurance? You think we're kind of here for good, and it's here for good?
It's definitely here for good. I think the technology is changing, the regulators are changing, so we have to be honest with the assessment. Starting and experimenting in blockchain three years ago was really a pioneer journey. Today, you've got much better understanding from the regulators about the technology, and you've got really key things in finance which are changing. I think the most impactful change which is coming our way here in Hong Kong and all over the world are CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and it's really a very strong endorsement from central banks, regulators, government for the technology, and it will create programmable money. It will create a new generation of money and new generations of pipes all over the industry. So it's going to probably start with payment use case, later capital market but I think it's going to be really a great opportunity for the insurance industry to catch up in general. And if you look at the value chain of finance, and everything starts from money. You price a risk, you cover a risk, you put and all this money is changing at the central banks level. So it will have a very deep impact, I think, on the industry. Regulators are changing; they start to give licenses for people who wants to deal with digital assets. So I see no reasons why insurance regulators will not follow the trend and give more space for the insurers to innovate in this style. And the technology is also more mature. Again, 3 years ago, there was only so much you could do with blockchain. Today, the public networks are really offering a new type of internet with a lot of reach, with scalability, with security. And I think all the same pattern you've seen in on the way we built internet over the past 20 years. I'm old enough to remember internet when it was slow and clunky, and essentially we went through 3 different generations of internet. The Web 1, which was only consumptions of content; Web 2, which was a social life moving to the digital space with the Facebook and other social networks. And now we are starting the Web 3, the 3rd generation of internet, the internet of value. And it really brings a lot of new technology, and it's going with the technology performances as well. So very confident it's here to stay.
Very good. And Selena, last word from you. Just a quick check that you agree with Charles, here for good.
Yeah, of course. And I have 100% confidence in blockchain. You see, Midas is a successful platform, and at HKFI, we are very keen to use it for more applications, maybe for more insurance lines of business, or even for more other functions. So I think blockchain has solved one of the most key important elements in our work, is privacy issue. And I think with this in mind, insurers are more likely to use blockchain because it does away all the privacy concerns and PII concerns. So I think it helped us as an industry platform to solve a very fundamental problem. So blockchain is here to stay, and for good.
Fantastic. Great. Perfect segue into the end of that session. And we've got a quick poll for you now. If you'd like follow-up discussion offline with any of our speakers today, please just answer this now, quick poll, and we'll put you in touch directly, including, of course, FTA, HK, and the digital insurer. So please quickly respond to that. Just a couple of updates from me, just to take us to close. I think most people watching will be familiar with the digital insurers InsurTech directory, but if you're not, please take a look out for that, because you can search on things like blockchain and see who's active in the space on our news feed, as well as various sort of areas of application of InsurTech sort of activity. You'll see, for example, Galileo. We got a full booth with Galileo on that platform. And we've been launching lots of maps, and our first maps were actually Hong Kong and Singapore. So you can find those and all the different InsurTechs that are active in the local markets through these maps on our site. And we're doing more InsurTech analysis on a lot of these companies around the world. And actually, some of that is done by people who've got full-time jobs and they just like getting involved with the TDI community. So if you're interested in volunteering to get involved in a bit of InsurTech analysis work, please just give us a yes or no now on the poll that's popping up, and we'll reach out to you separately. For those who've seen my backdrop and noted, TDI Academy, it's a business school we launched a year or two ago. It's been sold out all the way through over that period. The world's first mini MBA on all things to do with digital in the insurance world. Really interesting and great feedback being received, I think, from everybody involved. I guess look at how different technologies can improve things for customers ultimately through our existing world and potentially new models in insurance. So if you're interested in more on that, our next cohort starts in September. So please just drop us a line and we can get you more information on that as well. And of course, more and more of our content is being consumed online. So lots of recent webinars and stuff for you to take a look at if you're interested. But that's bringing us to the close for today's webinar. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Of course, we're always interested in your feedback, so please take a moment to complete the quick survey at the end of this session. You'll receive a recording link as well in a day or two from this session, so you can give us feedback then or drop us a line one-to-one, whichever way is most convenient for you. But really, it leaves me to say, firstly, a big thanks to all our presenters and speakers today. I'm not going to go through them all now, but I'm sure you'll agree, a fantastic mix of individuals with a lot of movers and shakers in the industry, and some great insights shared. My big takeaway from this is finally we've moved from problem or solution trying to find a problem through to lots of problems and actually application of the technology to solve those problems. And what better examples than the three we've shared today within our industry, all coming out of Hong Kong. So big thanks to those presenters as well as the broader panel today. And most importantly, a thanks to all of you for coming on, investing your time. We know that time is money, so you've got choice on what you do, and we hope you found it interesting. And I promise that we won't leave it another year and a half before we have our next session on blockchain. A final thanks also to Lapman, my kind of co-host and partner in crime in the FTA HK, for their support as well. And without further ado, everybody, we're going to close the discussion here on time. So thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.